He walked in wearing a hoodie and walked out humiliated. The waiter laughed at him, mocked his clothes, told him he didn't belong in a restaurant this expensive. But what the waiter didn't know was that the man he insulted wasn't just any customer. He was the secret owner, and he had just witnessed everything. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about reality, redemption, and a lesson the whole world needs to hear. Stick around because what happens next will change the way you treat people forever. The restaurant buzzed with elegance. Soft jazz played in the background, candlelight flickered on each polished table, and the scent of truffle butter and grilled steak danced in the air. Every chair was occupied, every customer dressed in crisp suits or designer dresses. It was the kind of place where you'd expect celebrities to dine, business deals to be made, and anniversaries to be celebrated. And then he walked in. A tall man in a faded hoodie, worn-out jeans, and plain sneakers. No jewelry, no flashy watch, not even a phone in his hand. Just calm steps, broad shoulders, and a quiet confidence that didn't match his appearance. Heads turned, forks paused mid-air. The man, none other than Big Shaq himself, though no one recognized him, not in that outfit, not with his hood slightly up and his beard untrimmed. He slowly made his way to a corner table, tucked near the window. The staff noticed him, especially Liam, a 23-year-old waiter who had just been hired a few months ago. Liam was known for his charm and his arrogance. He took one look at the man sitting alone and rolled his eyes. "Great," Liam muttered to his coworker. "Looks like someone walked in from a street corner thinking this is a burger joint." He strutted toward the table with the kind of fake smile you give when you think you're better than someone. "Good evening," Liam began, voice laced with sarcasm. "Can I help you, sir?" The man looked up and smiled warmly. "Yes, I'd like a menu, please." Liam didn't move. Instead, he gave a quick glance at the man's hoodie and shoes and said, This is La Maison Deluxe. You sure you're in the right place?" The restaurant wasn't just expensive, it was exclusive, the kind of place where even making a reservation took weeks. But the man didn't seem offended. He calmly nodded. "Yes, I know where I am." Liam chuckled. "Well, I'm just being honest, all right? Our cheapest item is a $60 appetizer. You won't find any fries or soda here." The man leaned back slightly, still smiling. "I didn't ask for fries. I asked for a menu." But Liam didn't stop. "Look, I'm trying to save you the embarrassment, all right? There's a really good food truck across the street, and if you're just here to look around, we'd appreciate it if you don't take up a table." The room was beginning to notice. A couple at the next table exchanged awkward glances. One woman gasped quietly, whispering, "Isn't that?" But before she could finish, the man slowly stood up. No anger, no yelling, just silence. He looked at Liam, then around the room. "No worries," he said softly. "I'll leave." And with that, he turned and walked out the front door, disappearing into the night. Liam smirked, turned back toward the kitchen and said proudly, "Man, these people really think they can just walk into luxury like it's a food court." What Liam didn't know was that the man he just humiliated was the owner of the restaurant. The walls? He paid for them. The lights? He designed them. The recipes? He approved them. When the restaurant door closed behind him, the cold night air didn't bother Big Shaq. He walked down the quiet street, hands in his hoodie pockets, a slight smirk on his face. Because this wasn't just any night. This was a test. And Liam, he had just failed it. But let's rewind a little, because to truly understand what happened inside that luxury restaurant, you need to know who Big Shaq really is. To the world, he's a viral sensation. The man behind the "man's not hot" meme. A rapper, comedian, entertainer, someone who made people laugh and got millions of views. But behind the viral fame was something deeper, something bigger. Big Shaq, born Michael Dapaha, didn't grow up surrounded by riches. He came from humble beginnings. Raised by hard-working immigrant parents in South London, he learned early what struggle looked like. They didn't have much, but they had values, respect, discipline, and hustle. While other kids were dreaming of flashy cars, Shaq dreamed of building something that lasted. He didn't want to just be a face on a screen. He wanted to be a boss. And he became one. Over the years, quietly and without much media attention, Shaq invested in real estate. He backed young tech startups. He helped fund schools and youth centers in poor neighborhoods. And most recently, he entered a new world, fine dining. The restaurant where Liam had insulted him? That was Big Shaq's first luxury investment in the culinary world, a high-end fusion restaurant called La Maison de Luxe. It was more than just a business. It was a symbol of everything he had worked for. Shaq didn't just throw money at the project. He was involved. He personally chose the head chef. He tested menu items himself. He even helped select the location, right in the heart of the city, where rich executives and influencers dined weekly. But lately, something had changed. The customer reviews started shifting. Not about the food, it was still excellent. Not about the decor, it was stunning, but about the staff. People whispered about being treated differently. If you're not wearing designer, they ignore you. One waiter rolled his eyes when I asked for a cheaper wine. They judge you the second you walk in. Shaq was stunned. That's not what his brand stood for. He called the manager. Everyone's being trained properly, right? The manager insisted yes. They're all doing great. Friendly, respectful, professional. But Shaq had a gut feeling, so he decided to do something bold. He told no one, not even his own business partners, and came up with a plan. I'll visit as a regular guest, he thought. No watches, no designer, no announcement, just me, raw and real. If his staff respected him dressed like that, they respected everyone. And if they didn't, well, he'd know the truth. And now he did. One waiter had failed the test so dramatically, it wasn't even subtle. Liam hadn't just been rude, he'd been condescending. The kind of arrogance Shaq had faced his entire life growing up, the kind that said, "You don't belong here." But now, Shaq owned the very table Liam stood behind. And the most ironic part? If Liam had looked closer, if he'd paid just a little more attention, he might have noticed something familiar in the man's face. The voice, the smile, the calm confidence. But ego makes you blind. And now that Shaq had seen it with his own eyes, there was no going back. He was going to show up, and this time, everyone would recognize him. The next evening, the atmosphere at La Maison de Luxe was just as polished as ever. Candles were lit, wine glasses sparkled, and the staff moved smoothly across the floor like trained performers. But there was one thing different. An unexpected announcement that had the entire team buzzing behind the scenes. Mandatory staff meeting at 10 p.m. sharp, the manager had said earlier. All waiters, chefs, and kitchen staff must attend. No exceptions. Liam, the same waiter who had turned away Big Shaq the night before, rolled his eyes as he rearranged wine glasses on the bar. Probably just another boring staff review, he muttered. Hope it doesn't take long. Got plans later. He had no idea those plans were about to get completely wrecked. As the clock struck 10, the restaurant's doors were locked for the night, and the staff gathered in the main dining area. The chandeliers above them glowed gently, casting long shadows over confused faces. Everyone murmured quietly, wondering what this sudden meeting could be about. Then the manager cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. Tonight's meeting is short, but important. We have a very special guest joining us, someone who's been watching closely. The doors at the back opened slowly, and in walked Big Shaq. But this time, he wasn't wearing a hoodie, no sneakers, no street clothes. He was dressed in a custom black suit, shining leather shoes, a diamond-encrusted watch, and a presence so powerful the room instantly fell silent. All eyes widened. Gasps echoed around the room. Someone whispered, "No way." But Liam's knees nearly buckled. He recognized that face now, the man he had kicked out just 24 hours earlier. The man he had laughed at, humiliated, and called cheap. It was him. Big Shaq, the owner. The manager stepped forward. "Everyone, please welcome Mr. Michael Dappa, also known to millions as Big Shaq. And as of today, the man who just evaluated this entire restaurant, undercover." Shaq walked to the center of the room, smiling coolly. He let the silence settle. "I walked in here yesterday, hungry," he began. "I didn't come as a celebrity. I didn't wear a gold chain or show up in a Rolls Royce. I came as a regular man." He paused, letting that sink in. "And what I got was not the service I built this place to deliver." No one dared move. Shaq turned his gaze toward Liam, who now stared at the floor, face red, sweat forming on his brow. "I asked for a menu," Shaq continued, "and I was told to go eat at a burger stand." A murmur ran through the staff. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't angry. But his words cut deeper than any scream ever could. "This restaurant was created as a celebration of respect," he said, "not just for people who walk in wearing suits, but for everyone. Whether it's a millionaire or a mechanic, a model or a mother with 3 kids, we treat all with class. That's the brand. That's the mission." He turned back to the rest of the staff. "And if any one of you thinks you're too good to serve someone based on how they look, this is not the place for you." The silence grew heavier. Then Shaq looked straight at Liam. "You. What's your name again?" "Liam," he stuttered, barely able to speak. Shaq nodded slowly. "Well, Liam, I'm not going to fire you. Not yet." Liam's head jerked up in shock. "But I am going to teach you something you'll never forget." The room stayed frozen, heavy with tension. All eyes were on Liam. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Shaq stood tall, commanding the space without raising his voice. "I've been where you think I don't belong," he said slowly. "I've been judged for how I looked. I've been treated like I didn't matter. And you know what? It taught me more than any classroom ever could." He turned slightly and addressed the entire staff now. "There was a time I couldn't afford food, let alone walk into a place like this. I remember sitting outside fancy restaurants just staring through the glass, wondering what it felt like to be accepted, to be treated like a person." He looked back at Liam. "And yesterday, you reminded me what that rejection feels like." Liam finally looked up, his voice trembling. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't mean—" Shaq gently raised a hand. "No need to explain. I know you didn't know. That's exactly why I came here like that." Then came the twist that no one saw coming. "You're not fired," Shaq said. "But starting tomorrow, you're suspended for 2 weeks." Liam blinked, nodding in shame, expecting that part. But what came next left the room silent again. "You'll be working at the soup kitchen we sponsor on the south side of the city. You'll serve meals to the homeless, the hungry, the people society forgets. People who wear the same hoodie I wore last night, except theirs isn't by choice." Some staff gasped. "You'll look them in the eyes, Liam. You'll hand them food. You'll listen to their stories. And when you come back here, I want you to remember every face, every thank you, every tear." Liam's face turned red. A mix of shame and realization swept over him. "I will, sir. I promise. I deserve this. Thank you for not firing me." Shaq nodded. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow, but never forget, when you're given power, even just the power to serve someone a plate of food, you're also given a responsibility." He walked slowly across the floor as he spoke, making sure every staff member felt the weight of his words. This restaurant doesn't just serve food, it serves dignity. No one walks in here to be judged. They come to be celebrated, whether they're millionaires or just people treating themselves after a hard week. A few waiters nodded, clearly moved. Shaq paused in front of a young waitress. "You," he said softly. "Last night you smiled at me when I walked in, even when Liam was turning me away. Thank you for that. You understood the assignment." The waitress smiled, eyes watering. Shaq turned back to the team one last time. We're not just a business. We're a message. Every plate we serve, every seat we offer, it tells people what we think they're worth. And if we only treat the rich with kindness, then we've already failed. There was nothing left to say. The lesson had been delivered, not in anger, but in wisdom. Liam stepped forward. Thank you, sir. I'll go to the soup kitchen, I'll learn. And when I return, I'll be better. Shaq gave him a pat on the shoulder. That's all I want, Liam. Growth, humility, respect. And as the staff slowly dispersed, whispering and reflecting, one thing became very clear. This wasn't just a lesson for Liam. It was a mirror held up to everyone. 2 weeks later, the doors of La Maison de Luxe swung open once again. Only this time, there was no swagger, no arrogance, no sarcastic smirks. Liam was back. But he wasn't the same person who had turned Big Shaq away just days earlier. He walked in wearing a simple shirt and black slacks. No fancy cologne, no fake confidence, just quiet eyes, a slower step, and a different energy altogether. The staff noticed immediately. Is that Liam? One of the waiters whispered. He looks different. And he was. Because the 2 weeks Liam had spent at the downtown soup kitchen had changed him forever. At first, he dreaded going. He thought it would be dirty, depressing, maybe even embarrassing. But what he found there was something he hadn't expected: humanity. He served hot stew to a man who used to be a university professor but lost everything after his wife passed away. He handed bread to a mother with 2 kids who'd escaped domestic abuse. He spoke with a young man just a few years older than him who once dreamed of being a chef, until addiction stole his future. Every single person had a story, and none of them looked like they belonged anywhere special. And yet, they all deserved kindness. By the end of his time there, Liam wasn't just serving food. He was staying late, cleaning tables, listening, learning. One of the elderly volunteers had said something that stuck with him. You can judge a person's character not by how they treat someone who can do something for them, but how they treat someone who can't. And now, standing back in the restaurant where it all began, Liam understood. He was given a second chance, and he wouldn't waste it. When Big Shaq arrived later that evening, the first person to greet him at the door was Liam. Good evening, sir, Liam said with a humble smile. Welcome to La Maison de Luxe. It's an honor to serve you. Shaq smiled back. No hoodie jokes tonight? He teased gently. Liam chuckled. Never again, sir. Shaq nodded approvingly and took his usual table, the same corner seat where he had first been turned away. This time he was served with grace, respect, and warmth. Not just by Liam, but by the entire staff. Because the story of that night had spread. It wasn't just a moment. It became a movement within the restaurant. Staff meetings shifted focus from flawless service to meaningful service. Training sessions now included a section on empathy. The restaurant's mission statement was rewritten and printed on the back wall. Dignity is always on the menu. Liam's journey became part of that message, not as a failure, but as a redemption story. Soon, customer reviews poured in. The staff here treats you like royalty no matter who you are. Was served by a young man named Liam. He made us feel like family. You can taste the heart in the service. And Big Shaq? He kept visiting, not just to eat, but to mentor. He'd pull aside young staff and remind them, you never know who you're serving. Treat every plate like it's for your own mother. In time, La Maison de Luxe didn't just become the most popular restaurant in the city, it became the most respected, because it stood for something real. And as for Liam, he became one of the most admired waiters, not because he was fast or flashy, but because he served with humility. The arrogant boy was gone. In his place stood a man who understood that sometimes the richest lessons come not from success, but from correction. If you were moved by this story, hit the like button, Subscribe for more real-life lessons and dramatic tales, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Tell us in the comments, have you ever judged someone by their appearance and been proven wrong? Remember, you never know who you're speaking to, so always lead with kindness.